Hey everybody, welcome to ABC4.com. Welcome to our first episode of our NFL Draft digital coverage. I'm Wesley Ruff. This is Dana Green, and for the next half hour, we're going to break down some of the local players who should be taken in the NFL Draft starting Thursday night.
That's right. We may not get to all of them today, but that's okay because we're going to be right back here tomorrow and Wednesday at 1:30-ish, on ABC4.com. And then don't forget, Thursday and Friday, right after the draft. You know, the draft is being televised by ABC4. So right after the draft at 9:30, we're going to have half-hour specials recapping about what just happened, and we're going to look ahead to the next day. I love this because right now the NFL Draft is the biggest thing going on in sports, and it just so happens there are a ton of local players that are expected to be selected.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun year because a lot of players from Utah expect to go. Maybe they'll set a record for the most players ever drafted.
8 is the record.
Yep. That was 2017,
right,
I believe, and they could break that this year. And, of course, with Utah State's Jordan Love getting a lot of attention. It doesn't look like anybody from BYU will be drafted this year. Some will sign free agent contracts, but, yeah, it's going to be a fun year.
Well, let's get to the guy everyone is talking about. That's Jordan Love, by far the most talked about prospect of the draft. Maybe the most polarizing player as far as predictions go among the experts. Let's take a look at his profile. Now, Love goes 6'4", 224 pounds. He is Utah State's all-time leader in total offense with 9,003 total yards. And you know what? He did it in 3 seasons.
Yeah, that's
he
impressive.
left after his junior year. Now, in 2018 as a sophomore, he was unbelievable. 32 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, but then kind of regressed as a junior last year through just 20 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, the most in all of FBS. But regardless, this is going to be the highest drafted Aggie since 1970. Phil Olsen went 4th overall.
Defensive lineman.
50 years ago. What do you think about Jordan Love?
I like him. He, as you mentioned, very polarizing. A lot of people are saying he may be the best pure passer in the draft. And this is a draft that's obviously heavy with quarterbacks at the top. And a lot of people say that he's not the best pure passer, and he's probably no better than a second-round pick. Very, very polarizing. Could go as high as 6th, could be in the 2nd round. But I think if people look at his numbers and the way he performed as a sophomore,
right?
There was a chance that he was going to come out of college then and go to the NFL. I mean, he had the numbers, the stats to do it. He could have stepped right in, and his draft stock would have been much higher. Right now, because of the junior season he had, although there were extenuating circumstances that caused him to. He had nine new players on the offense.
There was so much change between a sophomore to junior year.
Coaching.
I mean, Matt Wells to Gary Anderson. That's a big change right there, a different head coach. And then your offensive coordinator going from David Yost, who is an offensive genius, a lot of people were describing him as, to Bodie Reeder, a completely different system. He lost Ronquavian Tarver. He lost Jalen Green. He lost Aaron Vaughns, Dax Raymond, Darwin Thompson to the NFL. The O-line lost a lot of guys. As you mentioned, 9 starters off the offense were gone. So I think NFL scouts are giving him a bit of a pass so to speak. You see what I did there?
I saw that.
When it comes to his regression in his junior year, because he has the arm talent to make all the throws. I mean, people are comparing him to Patrick Mahomes for goodness sake. That's a pretty good comparison right there. And you know why? Because he can make these throws at these unbelievable angles that not many people can, and they see the potential. A lot of experts are saying he's got more potential, upside, so to speak, than a guy like Joe Burrow, who's going to be taken #1 overall. I think you got to go Joe Burrow, Tua, then probably Justin Herbert, and then Jordan Love is the 4th guy. And I don't see him getting out of the 1st round. I mean, do you see him falling maybe to a 2nd round? Some people do.
I don't. I've seen mock drafts where he has been in the 2nd round, but I think he's going to go maybe the latest, as you mentioned last night on Real Sports Live, maybe 19 to the Raiders.
That would be their second pick.
Right. For the Raiders, maybe taking him at the 19th spot. I don't see him falling out of the 1st round. I think he's got too much talent, too much upside, and as we've talked about with the NBA draft and the NFL draft, people are enamored with potential. That word potential and upside. But he's good, and he's got potential, and he's got a pro body. He can throw. This is interesting because people have been contacting Matt Wells,
right,
the coach at Texas Tech, who was Love's coach his first couple of years at Utah State. The NFL draft scouts have been calling him to find out what Matt Wells is really like, because they haven't been able to meet with. Obviously, they did it at the Combine, but since then they haven't been able to meet because of COVID-19, meet face to face. So they've been talking to Matt Wells about what Jordan Love was like and why Matt Wells thinks that Jordan Love's production fell off last year.
Right.
And Matt Wells has been very honest, very candid. He said that he still has a major arm. He can throw the ball on the run. Most people can't do it as well as Jordan Love, and Matt Wells had nothing but good things to say about his former star quarterback.
All right, well, let's look at potential landing spots for him. He could go as high as number 5 to my Miami Dolphins. I have a vested interest in this pick. I've been rooting for this team since I was born.
You're talking to the Dolphins, tell them to take Love.
After heartbreak. I don't know if I want Love. I mean, if Tua's available, I mean, if you're deciding between Tua Tagovailoa and Jordan Love, and this is one of the knocks on Jordan Love, is the competition that he's faced. I mean, last year, granted, he played LSU, national champs, one of the best teams ever, really struggled. I mean, I don't think they scored a touchdown in that game. Against Boise State, he struggled. Against BYU, he struggled. He did almost beat Michigan State in his sophomore year, so that's, a lot of people are looking at that game of how well he played. Looked really good against Wake Forest as well this year, another FBS team. He could go as number 5 to Miami. The Chargers at number 6, they need a quarterback. I mean, he would fit in really well, I think, in a system like that. But I also think, and you mentioned this as well, he may need a year or two under an experienced veteran quarterback. But the thing is, if you're picking in the top 10, you got to play him right away. If you have a top 10 pick and you take a quarterback, those guys start right away. We're not in that Aaron Rodgers phase where you can sit behind Brett Favre for 4 years. That just doesn't happen anymore. Who's Carolina? Carolina is a good landing spot for him. They have Teddy Bridgewater, so he could maybe learn under Bridgewater for a little bit. Jacksonville, they have Gardner Minshew. He's at their number 9, but I don't think he gets past the Raiders. But look out for this one, and I've heard a lot of rumors about this. The Patriots are going to try to trade up and get the successor to Tom Brady. His name's Jordan Love.
Here's some of the teams. You mentioned Miami. New Orleans Saints would be a possible landing spot. New England, as you mentioned, Chargers.
Learn under Drew Brees for a year.
Chargers, who's their quarterback? Is it Taylor?
Tyrod Taylor, yeah.
So I read an article where they said Love would fit in well there.
But they may go Justin Herbert, though.
Stay a year under Taylor, and then be the quarterback of the future. Packers.
Yeah.
I've talked to him.
I mean, how long is Aaron Rodgers going to go? Forever. But like you said, a couple of years, and his decision making is something that was called under question because those 17 interceptions. I know he lost a lot of guys. We've talked about that, but 17 interceptions, that is a lot. Most of any quarterback in all of college football last year. So I think Jordan Love in the NFL is going to be more like the Jordan Love we saw as a sophomore rather than a junior.
And Washington is another team that's shown some interest. Does Washington even have a pick in the first round? I'm not sure that they do.
I don't know if they do. No, they do. They're number 2 overall.
They're
going to get Chase
so
Young.
I don't think they'd take him with the second pick.
No.
But
they could trade back.
Yep, that's true. Or trade up from the second round to the late first round. It's interesting. I like him. I think he's good. I think he's going to be a good pick. Quarterbacks, I really think, do well when you get in a system where you can sit for a year or two and learn. I think back on, Terry Bradshaw was forced in right away as a rookie, and he struggled. They ended up taking him out of the starting lineup and started playing Terry Hanratty at the time. Scott Mitchell had, when he was drafted from the University of Utah, the 4th pick by Miami Dolphins, had the luxury of playing behind, what's that guy's name for
only
Miami?
The greatest quarterback of all time, Dan Marino.
You love him. You love him.
I'm a Marino
anyways,
punk.
He was able to learn the system under
Steve Young
Shula.
learned under Joe Montana.
Yeah, he played a little bit at
with Tampa
Bay and played in the with the Los Angeles Express in the what was it, with USFL?
USFL. There's been so many since then, right?
But then he was able to sit back and learn from Montana. So I think quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks, do better when you have time to be groomed.
Right.
And time to learn.
But they look at the tools, they see what he's got. He's got the mobility. He had 7 rushing touchdowns a couple years ago. He is the prototypical new age quarterback. And we actually spoke to Jordan Love last week from his home in Bakersfield. And, well, as you're going to see, he says he is ready for the next level. It's been a long process getting ready for the NFL draft, but Jordan Love says it's all been worth it.
It's like the best time of my life right now. I've just been able to, be happy and just enjoy the whole process because, I could look back on it and say, you know, not too many people get that opportunity to be, you know, just even talking to like NFL coaches, be in the same room as them, getting interviewed by them.
One of the more surreal moments was when Love met New Orleans Saints coach Sean Payton.
So when I went to the Senior Bowl, that was like one of my first interviews too at the Senior Bowl. And I walk in the room and he's just sitting right there next to me. And I was like, oh, wow, how's it going, Coach Payton?
Love has been projected to go anywhere from the 5th overall pick to the 30th, so he's trying not to pay attention to all the mock drafts.
I don't even guess. Like I look at him and I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, would this actually happen? And some of them, it feels like I've been projected to every team in the league. Like some teams don't even need a quarterback and they're still projected. I'm like, yo, that doesn't even make sense. But like I said, we'll find out on draft night where I'm going.
Coming out of high school, the only FBS team to offer him a scholarship was Utah State, so Love will always be thankful for his time with the Aggies.
Oh, yeah, no, it was a really good place for me, especially just a place like you can go to college and not have too many distractions around you. And just, it's really like there's nothing to do out there, so you got to be in the facility on football. Like, that's all you can really do. So it definitely helped out being out there.
Love had an up and down season last year, but he really burst on the national scene in 2018 when he threw for over 3,500 yards and 32 touchdowns.
Coming into that season, that was my redshirt year. I had like a year of development under my belt, so you know, I knew the offense well. You know, I wasn't scared. I was like, man, this is my time to get in the shine. You know, I got to make the most of this opportunity.
And did he ever? Love's been compared to Super Bowl winning quarterback Patrick Mahomes, which of course comes with a lot of pressure.
Definitely gives me hope seeing him. You know, this guy I even watched. I was watching him at Texas Tech, and now seeing him, it's cool to see. It's pressure no matter what, but yeah, it definitely added a little bit. Just knowing that, but at the end of the day, you know, you gotta. That's what we do. You gotta play through pressure and just can't let it get the best of you.
Love's going to spend draft night at his home in Bakersfield with his family and is starting to think about what he's going to do with his first NFL paycheck.
A lot to think about there. It's going to be pretty crazy. I'm definitely going to be getting a car, though. I need a car.
Everybody needs a car.
Yeah, he's going to be able to afford one, too, as a first-round pick.
Or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we are in agreement that Love will go in the first round.
Yeah.
But we might disagree on this next person. That one other local prospect. A lot of people think he'll be taken in the first round, or at least early second round. Utah defensive back JAYLON Johnson. Here's a kid, 6 feet tall, 193 pounds. He ran a 4.5 second 40 at the combine. He's got 7 career interceptions at Utah, and he's projected to be a late first round or early second round pick in the NFL draft Thursday or possibly on Friday. Dana, what do you like about JAYLON Johnson?
This guy is a true shutdown corner, and those just, he's 6 feet 1. He's long, he's physical. He's a guy that makes big plays. That interception against Washington. He had a pick 6 against Stanford. He didn't put up gaudy numbers at Utah because he took away half the field. Quarterbacks did not go after JAYLON Johnson because he is that good. And I've seen a lot of mocks have him going, in the late 20s, maybe early 30s. He's just a guy who is NFL ready. And I remember when he came to Utah, people were talking about him being NFL ready right away. Yeah. He had all the skills. And Kyle Whittingham does not necessarily go off on freshmen and how talented they are. But I remember when JAYLON was a freshman, he said this guy is as good as advertised because he, like you said, he takes away half the field. And you don't find that. If he's a first-round guy, I think he's plugs in as a starter on an NFL team right away, at least as a nickelback right away, and he's going to have a great NFL career.
And I like what you said about his numbers not being gaudy because teams just didn't throw his way. They were afraid of him, but he played in the Pac-12, so he's played against some great competition.
Great quarterbacks and receivers.
They have some great receivers in the Pac-12, and he was always assigned to handle the best receiver and did a pretty good job on it. I think he's probably a second-rounder. I don't think he's going to go in the first round.
Oh, no.
I think he's good enough to play.
I'll bet you a Coke.
Okay, we're on for Coke for a second-round pick for JAYLON Johnson. The defensive backs at the University of Utah have traditionally done well in the NFL draft. There's several reasons for that. Kyle Whittingham recruits great players to play in the secondary. He's one of the coaches of the secondary, actually, as well, a former linebacker himself. But the other thing is they play a pro-style defense.
Right.
So that the cornerbacks, safeties, the defensive backs coming out of the University of Utah are ready to play in the NFL right now because they play that system in college. And that's one thing that the pros really like about the defensive backs coming out of the University of Utah. They're ready to play right now.
Look at Sean Smith, Bryce McCann.
Been a lot.
You can go on and on.
Yep.
And there's probably 4 of them this year as well. JAYLON Johnson's a really smart guy. 3.6 GPA. I think the biggest question on JAYLON Johnson, and maybe the only reason he slips in the second round, injury concern. Yeah. He had surgery on March 4th to repair a torn labrum. He actually played with a torn labrum at the end of the year.
Right?
He wanted to. He wanted to play through it. Yep. I mean, and that also shows his toughness. I think NFL scouts and coaches love the fact that he played hurt, and he was expected to be out 5 months, but he has been cleared. They're saying August, he'll be full 100% ready to go. We'll see if NFL camps actually get going in August. But I think that's the only reason a guy like JAYLON Johnson would drop to the second round, because he's ready. I mean, he's rated as one of the top 5 or 6 defensive backs in the draft. And there's always a bunch, especially out of the SEC. You got C.J. Henderson out of Florida, is probably one of the top guys. Aduko, he's going to go maybe with the number 3 pick overall. But and JAYLON's just a great guy, and he left after a junior year, and I think he's headed for a very, very successful NFL career.
Yeah, I think everybody knew that he was headed for the NFL this year. I don't think anybody thought he was going to come back for his senior year.
And one thing that I read about him that was a good, like right there, he has wide receiver skills at the catch point, so he can make plays. If you throw the ball anywhere near him, I mean, he's going to make the catch. Not a lot of drop picks from JAYLON Johnson. If the ball's near him and he can make the catch, he's like a wide receiver.
Yeah, he's 4.5 speed in the 40.
Yeah.
That's fast enough.
There's going to be receivers faster than that.
Exactly. 6 foot tall. There's going to be taller defensive backs, smaller defensive backs. So he's kind of like right in the middle. He's kind of an average size, average speed, it seems to me, for a defensive back, but he's got the drive.
Right.
He showed the willingness to play through injury at the University of Utah, took out every challenge that was thrown his way, guarding the best receivers in the Pac-12 and doing a great job.
I can't wait for you to owe me a soda, because he's going first round. All right, so
we
know Jordan Love and JAYLON Johnson are going to be the first 2 local players drafted. Not sure who's going to go next, but it very well could be Utah's all-time leading rusher, ZACK Moss. Let's take a look at his vitals, so to speak. 5'9", 223 pounds. He broke, count them, 6 Utah school records in 2019, including career rushing yards with 4,167, 41 total touchdowns in college. He has a nose for the end zone, ran a 4.65 40 at the combine, projected to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. I know NFL running backs are just devalued these days. They think you can just plug anyone in there. If you have the right system, the right offensive line, anyone can rush for 1,000 yards. ZACK Moss is a special back. He's a 3-down back because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can pass block, which NFL coaches really love. And, man, when he gets near that goal line, he is just determined. He is not going to be denied. He's at 41 total touchdowns. I think ZACK Moss is going to be a great NFL running back.
Okay, let's talk about his times at the Combine. Originally in the Combine, he ran a 4.72.
Right,
which was one of the slowest, I think second slowest.
Didn't he have a hamstring?
I'm getting to that.
All right.
Yeah, so he ran a 4.72 in his first attempt. Said he was nursing a hamstring issue, ran again and ran the 4.65. Again, not great.
Right.
But, so he got over the hamstring issue. He told all the teams that were there at the Combine that was the problem. And then he was going to hopefully do better at Pro Day.
Right.
Pro Day got canceled at the University of Utah.
He held his own personal one.
So,
right?
yeah, so what he did, he's staying in Anaheim, training in Anaheim at his home down there. And he went over to Fullerton, and Fullerton had a play. There's a park, can't remember the name of the park, but in the park there's a artificial turf field house. So he ran there, fully electronically timed, with no hamstring issues, and ran a 4.52.
All right, that's fast enough for a running back.
That would have been like the 4th fastest running back time at the Combine.
Right, he is deceptive
and
speed.
it was legit. So, and he's been working, he's had to be creative because he can't meet with teams face-to-face because of the COVID-19 virus and the pandemic going on, but he's been creative about and making sure that they all know that he's ready to go.
Right.
He's over the hamstring issue, he ran that time. And the thing that bugs me about the Combine is they have these numbers, right? They have their projections that you've got to be this tall, you've got to be able to jump this high, you've got to be able to run this fast, and they don't take into account the intangibles.
Right.
The will to win. And the fact, I hope that the NFL is looking at his numbers of yards that he got after first contact, because it was unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The guy would get hit and he would just keep going and going and going. And to put up the numbers that he did when everyone knew he was going to get the ball at the University of Utah, and they would key on him, and he would still get those numbers, that's impressive.
Kyle Whittingham said it best whenever he talks about Zach Moss, he runs with violence.
Yep.
I mean, he just runs over guys. He's got great vision. He's got the power, but like you said, he has speed. You remember the 90-yarder he had against Oregon State where he took off down the sideline? He blew past the entire defense, and he showed consistency against Pac-12 defenses, and there's some very good. I mean, the competition level is where it needs to be if it's going to translate to the NFL. Again, one of the concerns about him is the injury thing. Don't forget, he would have turned pro after his junior year if he didn't injure his knee. Missed the last few games of the regular season as a junior. He missed the Pac-12 championship game. He was ready for the NFL, but he wanted to come back and prove that he is 100% healthy, that the knee injury is past him, and I think he definitely proved that. Then he injured his wrist, before the season started. That didn't seem to affect him. So I think, again, the only thing that keeps him maybe down a little bit in the draft, fourth, I don't think he goes past the fourth. I think third or fourth.
I agree.
Because he is, I mean, you don't find a lot of three-down backs. He can do it all. I love his ability to catch the pass.
I think somebody's going to be very, very lucky when they get Zach Moss either in the third or fourth round. Took some notes on my phone, so forgive me for looking at my phone. Pro Football Focus had him as the slated as the second highest running back available on the big board. Had him at number 7. Has him at number 77. Sports Illustrated has him as like the 7 in the first 7 round in their mock draft. Third round at 86 is a projection.
Third, fourth.
So I'm thinking, he could go. I've seen Buffalo maybe in the third round or possibly in the fourth round.
Here's a good line I heard about him. Quote, arm tacklers might want to call in sick. Because you're not going to bring him down.
Yeah, as I mentioned, his numbers from
after
contact and the number of yards he got after that is so impressive. And NFL teams, I hope they know that. It's not something you can test in the combine.
And he's just a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he's just a great guy. We talked to him.
And I like those guys that all came back to the University of Utah. Because
they wanted to accomplish that goal.
One more goal.
Right.
All right, from Utah's all-time leading rusher to Utah's all-time leading sack leader, probably the next guy to get drafted, Utes defensive end BRADLEE ANAE. Let's take a look at his numbers. 6 foot 3 inches tall, 257 pounds, all of it muscle. He's Utah's all-time leading sack leader with 36 career forced fumbles. He was a 2019 consensus All-American. He's projected to go in the third or fourth round as well. This guy is going to play at the next level.
Yeah, what do teams need maybe the most outside of a franchise quarterback? A guy who can get to that franchise quarterback, and that's BRADLEE ANAE. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how he's used at the next level. I've heard they're going to use him as a stand-up linebacker because he doesn't have that huge size. He's around 250 pounds, but he is so quick off that edge. I could see him in a 4-3 defense as a linebacker on either side, pass rushing specialist. One of the knocks on him is he's not really good against the run, but who cares? Putting him in there on first down and third down, and when there's passing situations, he is so quick. He's going to be able to get to the quarterback even at the next level. I think he'll primarily, especially early in his career, be used as a pass rushing specialist. He's smart, he's experienced, he played 4 years against some really good Pac-12 linemen. However, Penei Sewell from Oregon, the guy from Desert Hills, who's going to be a top 5 pick, kind of owned BRADLEE ANAE in that Pac-12 championship game, but that's Penei Sewell. Not many offensive linemen did that to him during his 4-year career.
Yeah, I like BRADLEE ANAE. He's a kind of quiet guy. He's a good interview, but he's kind of quiet.
But look at him. He's got the fire on the field.
Yeah, you would think as a defensive end that he would be more, in your face kind of a guy. And he benefited from playing alongside Leki Fotu because Leki Fotu attracted a lot of attention and held a lot of the offensive line in check and allowed BRADLEE ANAE to get a lot of those sacks because Leki Fotu's numbers were not nearly as impressive, and it's not obviously his job to get sacks like it is for the defensive end. But BRADLEE ANAE benefited from playing with a Leki Fotu. You go to the NFL, every team has Leki Fotus, right?
True. And you're going against their best offensive lineman, the offensive tackle, and try to get around them.
I like what you said. He's a guy who could play that stand-up.
Yeah.
I mean, some teams call it a stand-up linebacker or down line, move him up and just put him in his pass rush situations. I like Bradley ANAE. I think he gets with the right system, he's going to have a nice career.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I've heard second, third rounder. I know that he recently talked to the Jets, Bears, Lions, Browns, all really interested in him. And outside of Chase Young, the guy from Ohio State, is going to go second overall, most likely to the Redskins. There aren't a lot of impact edge rushers in this draft, and that should help ANAE's stock too, because that's exactly what he does. I think that Bradley ANAE is a guy that, you know, maybe he had 13 sacks last year. I think he's a guy that you can count on, you know, 5, 6, 7 sacks in the NFL. More so than a Nate Orchard. And look at Nate Orchard. He went in the second round of the Browns a few years ago. Didn't have the kind of NFL career that a lot of people thought. He was a little better against the run. But I think Bradley ANAE is going to have a very successful, productive NFL career.
I like him. Utah has cranked out a lot of great defensive linemen in the past. NFL teams have been grateful for Utah's, the players that they're sending to the NFL because they're ready to go.
And you mentioned that he's not, you know, really bulked up to NFL. He's going to be, though. I mean, there's such a difference between college training and then the NFL training. I mean, if he gets around 265, you don't want to get him too heavy because then you lose a little bit of his speed. But this is a dude that long arms. He's got to work on being able to stop the run, but man, what an impact you can have when you can get to the quarterback. All right, let's stay on the Utah defensive line, which could produce 3 NFL draft picks from last year's team. Let's talk about one of the biggest guys I've ever covered at Utah, a true mountain of a man, Harriman High's own Leki Fotu. You mentioned him, 6'5", 330 pounds. He's only going to get bigger. 85 total tackles in his career at Utah. Played for the U.S. national rugby team, so he's athletic for a big guy, projected to be in the 3rd or 4th round. Wes, I know there's a lot of these guys in the NFL, but everyone's got to have one. And Utah has produced some. When you think of Star Lotulelei, you think of Paul Soliai, Sione Pua. Look at Haloti Ngata. I know he went to Oregon, but he's a Highland High guy. I mean, I think Leki Fotu is the next really good, solid defensive tackle that Utah's produced.
Paul, what's his name? Was a quarterback at Timpanogos High School, then ended up at Cleveland. Kruger, yeah.
He was an outside guy.
I like Leki Fotu. I like him a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, I think he's part of the success, part of the reason that Bradley ANAE had so much success, because Leki Fotu just commands a lot of attention. Teams would key on him, and that allowed Bradley ANAE to maybe have one-on-one matchups and do his thing on the outside. But every team wants a guy like Leki Fotu. He's driven, he's strong, he's powerful, he's quick, and even if he's not an every down player in the NFL, he's a guy that you can substitute in there and not lose anything.
We talk about Bradley ANAE being a 3rd down specialist. I think Leki Fotu is a 1st and 2nd down specialist. Stop the run. He doesn't really get to the quarterback, but that's not his job. Like you said, it's to occupy. He gets double teamed all the time and occupies him. And what I love about Leki Fotu, I remember covering him at Harriman High. He was catching touchdowns as a tight end. I mean, he's got some athleticism to him. 5'1", 40. For a guy who's almost 350 pounds, I mean, that's really quick. He didn't really even start playing football until his senior year at Harriman. He was a guy that played basketball, rugby, but to develop into a 2-time first-team All-Pac-12 defensive lineman, 3rd team AP All-American. He had 29 tackles, 9 for loss, 1.5 sacks last year, and he's overcome adversity too. He lost his father to diabetes. He lost a 3-year-old sister to an accidental fall. So he's faced some hard times in his life and has overcome them. And he doesn't get dominated. And look what he did to that poor USC quarterback, Keaton Slovis. I mean, he took him out for basically the rest of the year there. I know the Packers are intrigued, I've heard. And I just think Leki Fotu is the prototypical defensive tackle in the NFL.
I would be keen to find out. I should go through and do some research here in the Utah
You really should.
And find out how many defensive linemen have been drafted from the University of Utah as opposed to defensive backs, because they've had a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Luther Ellis. I mean, he was one of the first-round picks of the University of Utah.
He's an immovable object, this guy.
Again, I think Utah's defense plays that pro-style defense that the NFL teams like. And when guys are ready to come out of the University of Utah. They're ready to step right in and play at the next level.
Right.
And I think Lucky Fotu is one of those guys who's going to have a nice career. He may not be all pro. He may not, maybe he will, but he's just one of those guys who I think is going to have a nice career in the NFL.
And those guys last a while. You look at like Haloti Ngata played 13 years in the league. Star Lotulelei is about to play his 8th year in the league. I mean, there's not a lot of movement there, so if you can keep your knees healthy, you could play a long time, make a lot of money in the NFL. All right, we got a lot more guys to go through, don't we?
We're going to talk about the defensive backs, too, because there's a lot of defensive backs that are going to be drafted.
Exactly, outside of Jaylon Johnson. So you're going to have to join us on ABC4.com tomorrow and Wednesday at 1:30-ish, we think. And we're going to go a half hour. We're going to talk about if any BYU guys are going to get drafted or make it into undrafted free agents. Utah State, David Woodward's the guy we got to talk about. So lots more to talk about. Plus,
we got the draft on Thursday night, Friday night. The draft is live on ABC.
Right.
On ABC4. And then at 9:30 on ABC4, we're going to have draft coverage Thursday night, Friday night. We'll go recap what happened on the first round and then the second through, second through fifth?
Second and third on the second day, and then 4th through 7th on Saturday.
A lot of Utah players going to be taken by the time Friday night rolls
We're
around.
just getting started. I'm fired up for this. We got a lot more guys to talk about.
Sports!
That's right. Until then, everyone have a great day. Stay safe out there.